protection is equally important. I would say that is the first step even before you move into the investment side of it.
It is very important for them to understand that insurance will not make them rich, but it will prevent them from getting poor.
These days, diseases are more critical than death.
Should they have their own individual policies apart from corporate policies to cover the health insurances?
So whatever the corporate cover is, you need to kind of determine what is my right sum assured. My right sum assured will decide on the metro that I stay in. It might decide on the kind of lifestyle that I'm living in. It might decide on what kind of age and pre-existing disease I have. It might decide on my family structure. I have parents and I need to cover them. Determining all this, what kind of sum assured do I have? As I said, we come from a typical Indian family or let's say a Guju Madu family kind of a stuff and feel insurance is क्या जरूरत है उसका मतलब है ना मतलब देख लेंगे करके and all that. Mortality versus morbidity. That is a very different perspective right now. We all live long, as what you just highlighted the quotes that you just said. Age factor is wonderful. We all go beyond that 75, 80 and all that. So from that perspective, covering yourself on the health side is equally essential.
Hello everyone, welcome to our new episode of Paisa and Perspective. Our guest today is Mr. Ajit Gandhi, who have vast experience in insurance industry with over 2 decades of experience in strategy, distribution and bank insurance. As a head of strategy at Bandhan Life, Mr. Ajit plays a vital role in strategizing distribution, spreading insurance as a product to millions of lives. His insights into customers' behavior, protection needs and the future of insurance makes him a very important voice for our today's topic on insurance. So hello Ajit, welcome to today's episode. Today we are going to be talking about insurance, and you being such a important voice with 2 decades of experience in the industry, we believe you have a lot to contribute in today's session. So please welcome to our today's session.
Sure. Thank you, Rishabh. Thanks to Mirage Finance for giving me this opportunity. And I'm sure whatever 2 decades of experience or whatever 2 bits I can contribute towards this session and make it some valuable for you and your customers itself. Thank you.
To start with, the most important question that always comes to our mind is when it comes to insurance and its penetration in India. The young people in India are generally avoiding taking insurance, thinking that this is not the time for me to buy insurance and I can always delay it for a future date. So what are your views on this particular aspect?
So let me start this with a typical Indian mindset that how do we operate. Let's say I come from a Gujarati family. Now that I'm a part of the industry, we kind of understand the importance of insurance and all that. But if I were to go back a few years and if I were to talk about when I joined the corporate life, I don't think my parents ever felt there was a need for insurance. And that is typically the takeaway we have as we grow.
Mhm.
So if I were to talk about the today's Gen Z or the millennials, whatsoever it is, they are all of the same type what we were when we were young. So we all feel that, okay, it is too early for me to look at insurance, or I think insurance is not necessary for me, be it on the term side, be it on the health side, or even at some point of time, you might feel that I think it is a pretty expensive investment to kind of do right away. Karke.
Yes.
I might hold on to that for some point of time. And maybe at some other point of time, I'll look at it. But unfortunately, that some other time does not come until unless there is some criticality waiting at your door.
Yes. As you rightly said, most of the people look at it as an investment and they forget that this is not investment, but this is a major focus towards protection, right? Taking it further, during COVID, a lot of people's approach towards life has changed. So do you also see that as a major shift towards insurance as an industry? Have people started looking at insurance in a different way?
So, if I were to talk from that perspective, yes, COVID did give an importance to the health side of it. There was a shift where people started looking and started asking questions about health insurance. There were people who kind of approached maybe the banks, maybe the agents, maybe someone in their family who knows about insurance, saying that what kind of cover should I take? What is the right amount that I should possibly look at? What will it cover, not cover, and all that. And that was for the first time we from the industry felt that instead of being a push, it is now becoming a pull product kind of a stuff. Uh, Unfortunately, as I said, for us, things matter when something is at our door and we really look forward to having that at that point of time. So we saw that shift upwards. There was a point of time when we had seen a growth of as much as 19%. But if I were to then see a couple of years after that, this growth has come down. And now we're looking at somewhere close to a 9 to 10% kind of a growth. While this is much better than what it was pre COVID, but nevertheless, it is not in the same momentum, the spike that we had seen during COVID per se. But yes, this has made people aware about it. And at least people in the metros are far more aware than if I were to talk from a rural perspective.
All right. So there's a typical thing that, especially in the Gujarati houses, that we talk about money all the time, especially about investments, but never we see our families talking about insurance. Uh, how do you see that impacting overall insurance protection of a family, and how important it is to make it an equal and important part of a daily conversation?
Uh, Tell me one thing, if we were to sit in a family, we all may speak about investments. We all may say, यार gold ऊपर जा रहा है, हमें possibly gold को दिखना चाहिए, या silver is one such stuff. Mutual fund sahi has actually made mutual funds such a lovely topic at houses that people discuss it. But today, tell me, how comfortable are we to sit at home and say, यार कल अगर मुझे कुछ हो गया, तो I think term. The moment you say कल अगर मुझे कुछ हो गया, there has got to be a stop at that. Those are topics that we don't like to speak and cover at home. And when we speak about health insurance, again, it's the same stuff, saying that about disease, about illness, and we are told, nahi nahi yaar, tumko kuch nahi hoga karke and all that. Now, those are the very typical mindsets that we have kind of lived with. Now, it is much more important that we kind of shrug that away. The way how we look at investment, protection is equally important. I would say that is the first step, even before you move into the investment side of it. Once you kind of protected, once you go ahead and start looking at building more liabilities, this protection is going to be your guiding shield while you look at further liabilities, future milestones, whatsoever it is. So, in that scenario, having a protection on the life and health side is very important. And somewhere I feel the next generation is kind of picking this up.
Right. As I mentioned earlier, that a lot of people look at insurance as investment, right? And it is very important for them to understand that insurance will not make them rich, but it will prevent them from getting poor. How important does this resonate with you, and what are your views on the same?
If you see certain reports, at least pre COVID, we had somewhere close to a 7 to 9% of the population actually slipping below the poverty line only and only because of managing the healthcare expenses. Thanks to a lot of government schemes, there has been an upside in terms of the number of people being covered. But even having said that, today, while Ayushman Bharat, the Pradhan Mantri JJBY schemes, or Jan Jyoti schemes, whatever we talk about, these schemes, they have covered people, but those government schemes are one side of it. The employer employee protection cover is one side of it. But on the retail side or the individual side, our cover is only 10%. So, in that scenario, we still have a long way to go per se. And I think people slowly need to look at insurance not only from an investment perspective, but something that is really necessary and that is going to be kind of helping them. So, yes, there are mutual funds, there are term plans, and there is an health insurance. I do not think from a financial planning perspective, there is a fourth angle to it. If something happens to me, I'm sure term plan is something that is going to help me and my family sustain the same standard of living over a period of time. I'm alive, but these days, uh, diseases are more critical than death. In that scenario, what happens to me or what happens to my family or what happens to my savings or my wealth in case of one of these diseases strike me karke? So therefore, that health insurance is going to be very important out over there to ensure that your wealth is safeguarded and you kind of have your health insurance to cover all of it. And while I am healthy, while I'm living, what happens to my goals, what happens to my lifestyle stages and everything of that sort? That is where investment comes in, direct equity, mutual funds, whatsoever it is. So from that perspective, I think this is going to be a very simple financial planning exercise that each one of them should look forward to.
Amazing. Stuck with me is by Mr. Nikhil Kamath of Zerodha, that most of the Indians are just one hospitalization away from bankruptcy. Uh, and especially the way inflation is catching up, especially into the health industry and hospitals. Uh, what is your view from that perspective? Just an extension of this question will be, most of the youngsters today are very happy with their corporate policies. Should they have their own individual policies apart from corporate policies to cover the health insurances?
Good question. At some point of time, we all feel that 3 lakh from a corporate is good enough for us to take care of it. If you do a reality check, and if we just step out, given our lifestyle, the way we consume food outside, the way our sleep pattern is, the way how our daily work life balance is, uh, he is very right in terms of saying that diseases are just one step away from us per se. India is anyways now started being known as one of the diabetes capital of the world per se. Having said all this, the place that you live is the most important factor to decide first and foremost, is that corporate cover good enough for me? Most of the times we all corporates get a employer employee scheme and we feel, है ना मेरे पास तो corporate cover क्या है? But if I were to knock and ask one of those corporate employees saying that भाई तूने वो खोल के policy देखा भी है, what does it cover, what does it not cover? In that scenario, if you look at your corporate policy, it is very important to know first and foremost what is the cover. What does it kind of include? Does it include a sharing room? Does it include a single room? What kind of pre and post number of days does it cover? Does it have any terms and conditions in terms of pre existing or whatsoever it is? Are there limitations to each of the diseases that you might have to undergo? Maybe a cataract, maybe a knee replacement, or a kind of stuff and all that. In that scenario, understanding your corporate policy is important. Fair enough, there might be someone who might say that I have a higher corporate policy of 5 lakh, 7 lakh. But then, how compared to a generation before us where people used to stay in their corporates and they used to have at least a longevity of 12-year, 15-year, 18-year, you tell me about today's generation who's sticking to a job for more than a 2-year or a 3-year. Now, if you kind of switching jobs, given AI kind of entering our job space and all that, there are frequent attritions, layoffs, and all that. Is that corporate policy going to kind of take care of in such scenarios and situations karke? So therefore having an individual cover is equally important apart from having a corporate cover. So whatever the corporate cover is, you need to kind of determine what is my right sum assured. My right sum assured will decide on the metro that I stay in. It might decide on the kind of lifestyle that I'm living in. It might decide on what kind of age and pre-existing disease I have. It might decide on my family structure. I have parents and I need to cover them. Determining all this, what kind of sum assured do I have? Having a 3 lakh and even covering my parents in that, I think we might be in for a surprise when we just reach at the hospital door.
So you just mentioned about how much cover do I have, and that's a very important question. So today, just keeping in mind the normal Indian middle class, retail person, what is the ideal cover that one should have? Because it is a question that nobody have a right answer to. So, as per you, what is the right cover that one should have, keeping in mind the kind of inflation that is catching up with, overall lifestyles? So, yeah. So,
Uh, let's take this question in two parts. Let's first look at the life side of it. If I were to speak from a life side of it, a very simple rule, 20x of your salary is a very basic thumb rule. Now, yes, this 20x of your lifestyle, if I were to kind of break it and make it a little bit more simpler, I need to first and foremost put my daily expenses or my put it on the annual mode of it, my annual expenses. Add to that all the liabilities that today I have, maybe a home loan, a car loan, a personal loan, whatever it is. Karke. If I have any future milestones in terms of expenses towards my daughter's expense, her marriage, or let's say tomorrow, in case if I have some retirement plannings, whatsoever it is, all those future milestones, I might want to remove my assets out of it. Basis this, you will come to a number, put some inflation to it, and that is at least the ideal cover that you should have from a life perspective or a protection perspective. The same thing if I were to speak from a health perspective, very key and crucial, the geography where you live in, the age that you are in, the kind of health style pre-existing in case if you have, you don't have per se and all that. And that is how it is. Karke. Having said this, at times people get little bit scared in terms of saying that, sir, आपने तो इतना बता दिया, अब इतना कवर लेना कितना महंगा हो जाएगा करके and all that. But it is not about saying that कि इतना cover लेना महंगा हो जाएगा. There is a smart way to structure this करके. So if I have to speak from a health perspective, uh, I might have a base policy of, let's say, a 5 lakh rupee or a 10 lakh rupee. If we are a family of three, maybe a something close to a 7 8 lakh is good enough. But if I were to cover my parents, I might have, let's say, a 7 8 lakh for me and I might have a 10 lakh for them. Karke. Add to that, uh, I will give you my own example. At the age of, let's say, a 46, 47, 15 lakh policy for me will cost me somewhere close to a 40,000. If I were to add 85 lakh worth of super top up, 85 lakh worth of super top up, this costs me only a 4 to 5,000 a year. And this makes me covered for a crore of rupees. Now, crore of rupees, is that sufficient? I would say it is more than sufficient today enough. So there is a way, it's just that our lack of knowledge and the perception in the market makes us feel that things are very, very costly. And therefore, we kind of avoid these discussions and topics all about it.
Yeah. So, in the conversations that I generally have with my clients, I always mention that health insurance is to protect your family wealth, while life insurance is to make sure that you protect your family lifestyle. But today, uh, if somebody is buying a health insurance for the first time, what are the two, three major checks that you will put across as a must to have in your checklist before you take a health insurance for yourself? So, if you can just help me with that small.
So let me tell you, this is a good question because this is one of the questions that even the government has now tried to attempt, or even the regulator is now trying to attempt. Now we have something called a CIS, Customer Information Sheet, which it has been made mandatory to be given to a customer, and it breaks up things in a very simpler format to say that what is my sum insured, what is covered, what is not covered, exclusions, everything of that sort. Coming to the question, what you said, what are those two, three items that we really need to check? First and foremost is the sum assured, very, very clear and clear. What is the sum assured that I'm actually getting? Correct. Two, what are the covers that I'm getting as a part of the sum assured? So, do I get a single room? Do I get a sharing room? Is the pre-existing and post-existing 30, 60 days, or is it a 60, 180 days? If it is 60, 180 days, it is all the more good, because certain diseases, even after you come back from hospitalization, take time to heal. Now, why would you want to pay out of pocket when you're paying a premium towards it? A 60, 180 day then makes sense out over there. And third, and the most important, is to understand the exclusions and the co-payment part of it. There are policies at times they might appear very, very cheap, but there is a co-payment part to it. You've paid premium. Now, to our viewers, let me explain what is co-payment. If I were to go to a hospitalization and if my policy says I have a 20% co-payment and my hospital bill comes 3 lakh rupees, 20% of that will have to be borne by me, which means a 20% on a 3 lakh kind of a stuff, I'll still be paying somewhere close to a 60,000 rupees from my pocket, apart from paying the premium that I've already paid. We take the policy and we keep it wrapped equally wonderful the way how I kind of received it without even bothering to open that up. So I think these are two, three items that we should really be careful about. Exclusions, co-payment, your pre-post, and your room limits and sum insured.
Perfect. While that answers the question, what are important things that people should look at? Now let's try to hear from you about your perspective about the government initiatives. SIP Sahi Hai was a very successful moment, and it's still one of the major moment in the industry. Insurance zaruri hai. Now that's a new one that has come up. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it is important. If you were to kind of understand, there are a lot of measures taken by the government and by the regulator. Say, for example, insurance for all by 2047. Now, that's one of the biggest steps that someone has actually taken. And the way how Indian population is going, two things are going to be very, very important tomorrow. One is the health cover. Second is the pension side of it. All the measures towards that are being taken in a very, very apt manner. So, say for example, like mutual fund Sahi Hai, which has actually seen a wonderful pickup, and today bank deposits are in little bit of a doldrums because of the mutual fund SIP inflows. From that perspective, acha kiya insurance liya. That is something that the general insurance is actually striving and thriving on. Karke. And there is something where the government is also kind of working in terms of the Bima Sugam, Bima Suraksha, in terms of handling the grievance side of it, in terms of making things available digitally, giving a comfort and a confidence to the customer. Certain things where they have in fact reduced the moratorium period for health insurance to 60 months, I think are all the right steps to kind of promote health insurance. And the government schemes are actually doing that. So today, if you were to see, there are somewhere close to 58 crore odd the Ayushman Bharat or the overall kind of stuff that we look at. of which somewhere close to 48% is the proper government driven kind of a stuff. Then you have the employer, and as I said, the rest 10% is from the individual retail schemes that we have. But I think the steps are being taken. Little too late, but nevertheless, insurance for all by 2047 as we all look forward to.
Wow, that's a big statement by the government, and definitely it should have the impact that we are all looking forward to. Uh, we always try to tell people that investment is for you, but insurance is for the people you love. How much ever we say that, a lot of youngsters today keep delaying buying their term insurance. What will you want to say to them through this channel today, that why it is important to buy term early, as early as possible?
So, if I were to talk from my own home perspective, to my kids, it is much more easier to go and spend money on that Netflix subscription. They would say that, okay, I think I need a Netflix subscription. I need an iPhone. I think I need those lifestyle stuff, which is important for me from my college perspective and all that. Or even if I were to move on to my first job, my suggestion to all of them is one, if you buy term right now, first and foremost, younger the age, lesser the cost. And this cost remains constant over a period of time. So it is much more important to keep yourself protected right now. Second part to this is you are young, you are fit, you are healthy. The same term plan, when you look at 40 years, and given the work life balance, given the stress, given the lifestyle that we live in, there are chances that we would have some of the other disease, illness, be it blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol. We kind of call it ABCD. You call it asthma, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes. One of these ABCD might have hit you, and at that point of time, this premium will be multifold. So there was some study in between where it said that if you buy this today at a younger age of maybe a 25, 27, this will cost you $200 annually. The same stuff, if you delay by 10 years, will become $500 annually. And that, if you take the difference for the next 25, 30 years, that amount is a unnecessary expense that you will have to uh, undergo just because you kind of delayed this by 10 years. So I think that protection has got to be equally important. It's got to be lesser than the other cost of subscriptions and the other items that they actually incur today.
Amazing. You've already mentioned that 20x is the right some insurance that one should look at when they're looking at buying term. Uh, Keeping that in perspective, what are the other 2 3 checks that you will want to give them when they're looking at term insurance and overall, insuring their life? So, what are the important aspects that they need to consider apart from just looking at their overall uh, earnings and 20x as a calculator?
So if I were to get this question right and to answer you from that perspective, uh, term is really, really important, and they need to have that right cover in place. That is essential, crucial. We already spoke about the health side of it also, Karke. The other aspects that I would kind of want to highlight is there is something called as home insurance. Today, if we were to speak in India, uh, during the loan, if you were to kind of go and buy a loan, there is a bank who's going to try and push you for a home insurance and all that, but that is largely to cover their side of the loan. The moment the loan gets covered, your insurance is also kind of null and void. There is nothing that you get out of it. Okay. But having said that, in case if some peril strikes, in case if some natural disasters happen, in case if there is something that happens to my home, uh, that is the biggest asset for the middle class today. How are we kind of protecting that stuff? Karke? Uh, we look at our mobiles and we look at our gadgets because someone over there says that sir ये mobile टूट गया तो आप ये insurance ले लो, and I really feel the need for it. हाँ यार ये तो छूट सकता है मेरा हाथ से, टूट सकता है मेरा हाथ से, and I need to have that करके, and we feel that अच्छा चलो यार सस्ता है, let me find to get that. We don't think similar when it comes to our homes. We feel कि यार घर को क्या ही होगा, क्या ही तो natural calamity होगी, so and we kind of avoid all that करके. But I think home insurance is really, really important, and it's not something which is kind of going to be a costly affair. Apart from that, couple of other insurance elements that one needs to look at. There is something known as a critical illness cover. A critical illness cover, if you are young, if you are fit, and if you kind of buy that, is a very, very important tool to safeguard your wealth. Tomorrow, in case if anyone gets diagnosed with one of the critical illnesses, like let's say a cancer or something, you the person might never know how much it can erode in terms of his wealth. But if he has a critical illness cover, There is nothing that possibly goes out of his pocket per se. A personal accident policy, very, very cheap, very, very cheap. But yet at times we kind of avoid all of this karke and all that. So I think these are few elements that we need to kind of have in our mind apart from looking at purely from a term or a health perspective.
So when we look at insurance, right? If I want to create a checkbox of which insurances I should have in my kitty, uh, like health insurance, term insurance, house insurance, what are different types of insurance that are related to one person's life that he should keep in mind that this all are available and then he can select out of that kitty. So if you want to just highlight some of the categories broadly.
I think it's largely the same what I just mentioned about it per se. First and foremost is your life cover. That is the term cover. That is the key and essential. If I'm the bread earner of the family and tomorrow, God forbid, something happens to me, I would not want my family to undergo a different lifestyle than what they are living right now. I would not want my liabilities to come on their head and it becomes a financial burden for them. From that perspective, term is the first and foremost stuff. While I am alive and I'm giving my best in terms of ensuring wealth creation and everything, if some disease or something hurts me, health, I would put on number two, saying that this has got to be important. After that, one may look at home insurance, one may look at other insurances in terms of critical illness or whatever it is. Let me tell you, health insurance is becoming a little bit more intelligent, little bit more innovative. I have seen insurers and banks, that is a bank assurance model, working amazingly. We had visited one of the places, and whereby one of the banks, if you open up a fixed deposit, they are giving you a cover along with your fixed deposit. A very innovative cover which says that, sir, tomorrow if you get hospitalized for 3 days, we will give you 20% of your FD as a reimbursement to your 3 days of hospitalization. Why? Because, sir, we do not want you to break your FD. And if this hospitalization increases to 5 days or a 7 days, we will increase this reimbursement to you in terms of 40% or 60% or whatever it is. And he said, sir, this is not only related to FD, I can possibly have this cover for credit cards. I can have it for all your liabilities per se. In that scenario, this is such a lovely stuff where a customer, whatever liabilities he has, he can actually make them covered across. And this is not something which is a costly affair for the customer.
Yes. And when it comes to such products which are very innovative and mix of two, right? We have always seen that rich people have a different approach towards insurance compared to ordinary individuals. How is that different? And if you can, from your journey over the last 2 decades, if you can highlight some of the examples that how rich people look at insurance differently compared to the others. So
First and foremost, for the middle class, insurance largely does not come up as a need. Even if it comes up as a need, life will come up largely from an investment perspective, which I would feel that is not the right way to look at insurance if you were to kind of start with. Correct. And if you were to speak from an affluent or an HNI perspective, for them also it is about protection. But that protection is largely about covering the key person in the family or key person in a company, whatever it is, the key man policy. The covers are very, very huge. The covers are very, very large. Even from a health perspective, their covers have huge sum assured, and their covers actually have something which is like a global cover. They would want to have all of it that is the best in terms of the best coverage across the globe, traveling across to some place, whatever it is. And even the protection covers that they have, the protection covers are largely to ensure that if there is a inheritance that is happening, and if there is any liabilities or any expenses towards that inheritance that is happening, that liabilities or expenses should be covered by this insurance. That protection is largely meant towards that, not in terms of saying that, okay, we genuinely need a term plan and that term plan is going to be essential for us to survive or stay put karke. But for a middle class, that is about ensuring their standard of living or their survival goes on even if they are not present. So from that perspective, it is little different. It is much more about the key man stuff. It is much more about the global protection and the overall protection for them.
amazing. Also, to add on to that, from my personal interaction with the clients that we have, we've always seen that middle class focus on mitigating risk. If I'm not there, what are the risks that I need to take cover for is what their thought process is. While the rich families think about wealth transfer, how will the money transfer from one generation to another is what they always put into perspective when they're talking about insurance. And this I believe is totally different take. While somebody wants to reduce their premium as they age because their risk are getting limited or reduced, on the other side, somebody is ready to take on to higher premiums with age so that they are able to transfer much more wealth to the next generation. And that has been a total eye opener for me when I do conversations with a lot of our clients. But when it comes to you, Mr. Ajit, if I want to take you down back in the memory, and if today you were going to start your career and take the first policy towards insurance, what are the insurances that you will focus on? And what are the mistakes that you will want to change that you must have made in the past?
I'll give you a very real example.
Yes.
I bought my first term plan at somewhere close to a 30-32. Had I possibly done that at a 25-26 when I first entered the corporate side, I think I would be paying a lesser premium, and that possibly would have been a good savings for the next 35-40 years. It might seem a small amount at that point of time, but that small amount, had I put it in mutual fund and if I would have allowed it for 35-40 years, it would have been a different game story per se. Second mistake that I would say is it is not only about covering myself. My parents, as I said, we come from a typical Indian family or let's say a Guju Madu family kind of a stuff and feel insurance is क्या जरूरत है उसका मतलब है ना मतलब देख लेंगे करके and all that. At some point of time when my mom dad they underwent certain diseases and all that, we kind of knocked doors on insurance, and at that point of time, one, it was way too costly. It came with conditions, certain things yet not kind of get covered and all that per se. If I were to think from that perspective, possibly at 25, 26, or even at 30, I think I should have covered them alongside me so that everything for them would have been smooth. And even from that wealth that I am creating right now, that erosion on that side would have been very minimal to that extent. Karke. So I think it is not only about me, but even from parents' perspective, the young generation needs to ensure that earlier they cover their parents. If the parents are not covered, then I think it's a right step to that direction.
Wow, that will definitely give a lot of insights to a lot of people listening to this podcast. Today, we see that whenever it comes to insurance, the major conversation is only around health insurance. Most of the other insurance are something that is happening in the background or may not even have. Like most of the families that I have conversations with, 80 or 90% of them do not have a house cover, do not have a fire cover for their factories or industries that they are working in. How is that changing? And what do you have to say over there? Like, what is your strategy as somebody who is planning strategies for Bandhan Life? How are you guys taking it and making sure that this is changing over the next period of time or course of time?
As I said, insurance for us as an Indian mindset does not come in the list of essentials at all. It is slowly that people have now started realizing. So we've taken the first step in terms of life, we've taken the second step in terms of health. Uh, Touchwood on the general side of it, now health leads motor and everyone else. So that's a good sign and a welcoming step per se. But I think even the other insurances that you're saying, the distribution mechanism today is now soon started focusing on that. So you see a lot of SMEs, you see a lot of small corporates, you even see the big ones anyways, they have taken the right steps in that direction in terms of covering themselves commercially and otherwise. Karke. But even the small corporates or SMEs and all that, they now started looking forward to that. So in that scenario, be it the fire side of it, the corporate side of it, people are now looking forward, and banks are playing a very vital role. Agents are playing a very vital role in terms of educating the customer, saying that sir, it's not a costly affair. They present a proper proposition to the customer, saying that what happens at what stage and why is it going to be beneficial. And thanks to the exposure socially, also people are now kind of realizing the benefits of it. So I'm sure that while it is a very small percentage right now, maybe 5 years down the line, we might see it picking up the way how health is actually picked up.
Amazing. So recently, I was having a conversation with one of the member from the industry, and she portrayed a very interesting take on insurance, which I would like to share with you, and then want you to comment on it. She said that life, L means if you live long, so you need to cover that in terms of if you have a longevity of 90 years, 99 years, medicine is going to make sure that you don't die. And LIF, E means early death. right? So you need to make sure that you cover your early death. If in between is all the other forms of insurances that you need to take care of, if you get hospitalized, if the house is on fire, if so it was such an interesting take on insurance that really changed or caused a shift in my perspective. So I just want to leave you with that and want you to tell me now that one thing, if today anybody is listening to us, what is that one thing that you want them to take away from this podcast on insurance as one of the major things that they should have?
Uh, I'll take a little bit more leeway. Instead of one, I said I'm going to
Yeah,
say two.
please.
One, do not take insurance as investment. That is the first and foremost take. We have a mindset. वो मारुति की ad है ना, कितना देगी? So we have that mindset कि if I'm putting in premiums, if I were to go to my dad and say that, मतलब we have this much of cover and all that, he will say, यार ये इतने साल भरा इसका मिलेगा क्या? मतलब इसका हमें कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. But the family is safe, family is secured, and things are absolutely fine. Even in terms of health insurance, and मुझे नहीं चाहिए health insurance. अच्छा है नहीं मिल रहा है करके and all that. So from that perspective, insurance is not investment करके. And second, mortality versus morbidity. That is a very, very different perspective right now. We all live long, as what you just highlighted, the quotes that you just said. Uh, Age factor is wonderful. We all go beyond that 75, 80 and all that. But when we are in 40 to that 80, we go through a turmoil. We go through this ABCD and we go through whatnot other diseases and all that. So from that perspective, covering yourself on the health side is equally essential. And I think those are the two important takes that I would like to kind of leave your viewers about.
That is amazing take. Mortality versus mobility. Wow, that is again going to cause a lot of shifts in the way people think about insurance. As you mentioned about kitna degi, I have a thing to add there. When it comes to insurance, you see premium popping up every day, right? So the cost of insurance is always visible because you have to keep paying the premiums, but the cost of being uninsured just comes once in life, and that's when you realize the importance of insurance. So it was an amazing to have this conversation with you, but to make it more interesting, before we wind this session, I want to just take you through a rapid fire round. So I will ask series of questions that I want you to answer with whatever comes to your mind. So one insurance myth you want to destroy forever.
Insurance is expensive.
Wow. Health insurance before investing, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely yes.
And just to add on it, if there is a linearity in terms of hierarchy, in terms of which insurance you should go first, so what will it be?
My sense is term followed by health.
Okay, amazing. One underrated insurance product in India.
Term, absolutely. People yet don't look at term. They look at everything else from a ULIP to a child to a retirement to a pension, everything of that sort. Have that. I'm not saying that that is something that you should not have, but term is something that you need to have in your kitty for sure.
Amazing. Biggest financial mistake Indian families make.
Considering insurance is investment.
Yes, that's a great one. One financial habit every young earner should start immediately.
The way you look at it, please invest in yourself by having a term and a health plan.
Amazing. So this was great. It was an amazing interaction that we have had on insurance, and your take on insurance will definitely add a lot of value uh, and perspective to the viewers. So Ajit bhai, thanks a lot for your time. This was amazing, and looking forward to having more such interesting conversations with you in the future.
Thank you. It has been my pleasure, and I'm sure I'm able to add value to your customers.
Yes.
But thanks for having me over here.
So,
Appreciate that.
so one thing that I want to take away is mortality versus and mobility.
Mortality versus morbidity.
Yeah, mobility. That is definitely going to be something that is very interesting. So
Thank you. Thank you so
thank
much.
you for your time.
Thank you.